Hello and welcome to PlayStation Racer. My name is Mitchell Morgan and this is my first proper Assetto Corsa Competizione video in which I'm going to talk very briefly about the setting up of the game on the PS5, how I've set up my wheel and all of the different button bindings and things, and just some observations that just might help you if you are installing this for the first time. And a couple of things that I specifically don't like initially. We'll get to those in just a moment. So installing the game was very straightforward. I downloaded the game from the PSN network. I didn't get a box like I normally do, just bought it on the offer, and the all install went very easily. I haven't done anything with the championship or the special events or anything else. All I've been looking at is the single player, and I've just done a few laps at the moment. I've got myself set up as a driver, just as Mitchell Morgan. At some point I am going to change my overalls to the black because I prefer those, but I'll do those at another time. So if we just come out of there, the gallery I haven't done anything with, and the options in here is where you can go in and set the video. So my video is all just set as default. I'm quite happy with that, and I actually really like the graphics in this game, if I'm perfectly honest. The audio, again, I can turn the master audio down. It is quite loud when you initially start playing it, especially considering the levels that I've got in Gran Turismo. So I may well turn the master volume down a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I'll let you know as we go on, but for the moment I'm leaving it 100% and just adjusting it on my television. With regards to the controls, this is where things really started to unravel for me, and I spent probably about 2 hours trying to get my Logitech G Pro to be recognized in the game. This was the massive gotcha and almost made me put the game aside. The key thing here is, and this is my real pet hate in this game so far, you cannot use the controller and the wheel at the same time like you can in Gran Turismo. So very often I'll grab the wheel just to go, grab the controller just to go through a few of the menus or to go through the chat and things like that. As soon as you get the controller working, the wheel will not be recognized. Plus, before you start the game, you have to have the wheel on. You cannot start the wheel afterwards. So occasionally what I'll do within Gran Turismo is I'll adjust my profile and then I'll turn the wheel off and then I'll turn it back on again so that those settings will take, and I know that they've taken. Annoyingly, if you've got your wheel operating the game and you turn your wheel off, or you get a disconnect, or you go away and the wheel goes into hibernate, you're locked in the game. There is nothing that you can do other than grabbing your controller, going out to the main window and restarting your PS5. Now, unless I've got that wrong, and please let me know in the comments if I've got that wrong, that is a big negative for me, a massive negative for me. The game needs to be able to use the controller and the wheel at the same time as two different inputs, in my mind, the same way that Gran Turismo does. Or if I do recycle the wheel, I turn it off and turn it on again. When I turn it on again, the game needs to recognize that I've connected that new controller. And it doesn't. It leaves me in limbo, and I absolutely hate that. If you do start the game with your Logitech GP Pro or G Pro on, then the game will find it, as you can see here in the presets, the Logitech G Pro, and also I've got, if I come down to it, I've got the Logitech Pro MM. The Logitech Pro MM is for Mitchell Morgan, and that has got my preferred presets. So if I load the presets for the game, then you can see in here what is set. And if you go to mine, and I've started to override them both now, so they're both the same, because sometimes I tended to find that it would load up the G Pro rather than my settings. so I've got them both. But if I've opened up mine, then I'll just go to the top. I'll take you through my preferred settings. My steer is obviously the steering wheel. For the wireless controller, it is the obviously the left stick, and the throttle and brake positions are just normal. You can change those accordingly. But if I do push the throttle down, then you can see that the throttle, the brake, and the clutch are all lit up in red. And what I have done is I've adjusted the brake in the wheel, the brake pressure, so that now if I am pushing the brake pedal to where I would normally, I am hitting 100%. You can't calibrate the pedals like you can in Gran Turismo in the same way. You can do a high and a low, but I've managed to work out that if you set the brake to 0, then you don't get any initial lag, as it were. So if you rest your foot on the brake pedal and you're applying 1% brake, it doesn't register. I have that turned off, so you can see over here the brake dead zone. I've got that set to 0. That's just how I like it. If you rest your foot on the brake pedal and you just want a little bit of a dead zone in there, then you can apply that way. But the top end, I've actually brought it down a little bit within the wheel. The gain I've left at 100%, the minimum force 0, dynamic damping 0, road effect 0, frequency 400. This is all pretty much standard. I've got my steer lock at 1080 degrees, so I've got full swing. The steer scale is 100. The linearity and the brake gamma is 1. The brake dead zone, as I said, is 0. The throttle dead zone is also 0, so as soon as I apply the throttle, it's immediately kicking in. There's no delay. And the true force audio gain, I've got to 50%. I need to play around with that a little bit, and I'm going to explain that one when I actually get into the game. I actually initially liked to have the true force on the wheel set to 100, and I know that is a lot of information coming through, but then you start to hear the game noise coming through the steering wheel audibly, which means if I'm racing at night, that is going to disturb Joe and whoever else is in the house at the time. So I'm having to dynamically change that depending on when I'm racing. If I'm racing in the day, I can have it up higher, but if I'm racing at night and I want a quiet bass, then I'm having to reduce that in the bass down to 20. I'll come to my wheel settings in just a moment. So the control bindings. Now, I wanted to have my control bindings similar to Gran Turismo, but there is an issue in that you cannot, on the Logitech G Pro, you can't use the little push button on the left scroll wheel. It doesn't work. And I use that to scroll through the HUD so that I can change things. Now, you can in the game bring up the HUD on the right hand side and modify them, but it's an awful lot of information there. It can be done, but you're going to need to do that on a long straight, and again, you may well see me doing that in the game at times. But my control bindings I've got at the moment, this is on the standard wheel. When I get the RS wheel, like the GT wheel, the new one that they've got out, there are 2 additional buttons, and I'm probably going to map those to traction control, but for the moment I've got traction control mapped slightly differently. So I've got my right and my left for my shifter. You'd imagine that is the same. The ignition I've got on square and the starter on triangle. So that's my top left on the wheel. The reason I've got those set rather than set to auto is on a lot of places when I was researching information about the game, it did say that if you manually turn on the ignition and hit the starter, it is quicker than the game doing it. I don't know whether that is going to be something that is important or not, and if it isn't, then I can turn those off and remap those buttons accordingly, maybe to traction control up and down or something else, I'm not quite sure. Toggle the wiper I've got unassigned, and cycle the wiper I've got unassigned. The next dash page is unassigned as in the previous. Cycle secondary display is my up toggle on the little joystick on the steering wheel. The increase traction control and decrease traction control, I'm just going to go in there and assign that to the L3 button. I think I must. Oh, am I on the? This is the other thing that gets me confused. Is am I on the Logitech Pro or am I on M? I could never remember. So preset is loaded. So Logitech Pro M. Let me just go back. So I think I made that change this morning on the wrong one. So the shifter is R1, the down is L1, the ignition is square, starter is triangle, pit limiter is O, and I wanted that on the top right hand, very, very easy, the first button where my thumb is resting. So as I'm coming into the pits, it's the easiest button to press as I'm coming into the pits. Toggling the wiper, the next dash pad I'm not doing. Cycle, as I said, upwards. Increase traction control, I'm going to set that to the L3 button. That will actually cycle through. So if I want to, I can increase the traction control all the way through the range and it will then come back to 0 as well. So you can just keep pressing that to go through. You don't necessarily need an increase and a decrease. The control cut, I don't know what that is at the moment. The game does suggest that you set increase ABS and decrease ABS. I haven't got that set at all. I usually just set the ABS and leave it alone. The brake bias I have set to the plus button and the minus button, and that is the scroll wheel on the left hand side. Assuming I'm getting these two around the right way. The engine map is something I use a lot in Gran Turismo. I don't know if I'm going to use it in Assetto Corsa. It's not mapped as standard, but I've got that in there on the other scroll wheel. Now I would imagine that the engine map enables you to adjust the amount of fuel that you're using, and therefore if you want to maybe get an extra few laps, you can fuel save, I would hope, by lifting and coasting into corners. But also if I really need a fuel save, then I can adjust the engine map. That's something I imagine that I would want to do within the game, so I've set that accordingly. If I want to flash the lights at the guy in front, then I've got X set if I want to flash the lights for any reason. I don't tend to do that too much, so that is a button that I may well change at some point. The left indicator I've got to L2, the right indicator to R2. I do use those to let people know that I'm going to be moving one way or the other if I've got to set a penalty. Cycle the camera I've got to R3. That is where I normally have it in Gran Turismo. That's where you can cycle through the cameras, so you can go from the cockpit mode to the bumper cam, etc. Look left, I've got on the toggle switch, so left, right and back. Makes pretty much sense. And then cycle the HUD, I've got that on the enter button, so if I just push that, then I can cycle through the HUD. All of the rest in here are all unassigned. The force feedback is unassigned. The master volumes are unassigned because at this point I've run out of buttons, and I'm not setting the traction control to a particular value. I'm having to cycle through as with ABS and the like. So all of those are all unassigned in here. So those are all of the settings that I have in the control options. With regards to general, I've left all of that pretty much standard. I've got skip session intro sequence off. I'll probably turn that on at some point, but I've left it there at the moment. Pit crew animation is on, pit markers are on, the rating is on, the online stats are on, and the replay mode is, just left that as legacy, so that's all the same. The audio settings we had a look at, and then you've got the credits, which is obviously not that important. Then where was I? Let's just come down to options. The assists, I've got my gearbox set to manual, so I'm on custom. I've got my gearbox set to manual, I've got the clutches automatic. The engine start is manual because obviously that is what has been suggested to me, but because I've now run out of buttons on the wheel that I can use, I've got the wipers set to automatic and the lights set to automatic. I felt that that was just something that you would want to put the wipers on if it started raining. You'd want to put your lights on if it got dark, and on most cars these days you've got the wipers and lights are coming on automatic anyway. The pit limiter you could set to automatic, but I've got it set to manual for some realistic ability. That's not a word, but you know, more realism I think is the word I'm looking at. Stability control is off. Now, stability control allows more stable cornering and makes it harder to spin. The higher percentage is set, the more stable the car will be, and thus easier to drive. So immediately you think, oh, let's put that on. But then it goes to say, the use of stability control is prohibited in blunt pane regulations. So this setting is to be considered an additional gameplay assist and not a realistic option. Enabling any percentage of stability control affects your realism more. To navigate, we'll go up and down through here and then off, and I can 5, 10, 15%, all the way up to 100%, I would assume, and then it cycles. So at the moment I've got the stability control off. I may well put that on later, I don't know, but I'll just hit the confirm. It makes sense now. Navigate using, it says at the bottom, navigate using the toggle switch and cancel and then confirm. So I'm just going to confirm all of those. With regards to the HUD, I've got the gear speed enabled. In fact, I've got most things enabled in here except for I've got the rating practice info set to auto. I have changed the speed units from kilometers per hour to miles per hour because I'm in the UK, we work on miles per hour. The service statistics I've got disabled, and the minimum message priority I've got set to low, and the rest driver AI name tags are disabled, and the online IDs is enabled. So that's basically how I have got the game set up. I have set up a different profile on the Logitech DJI Pro, and I'll take you through those settings very quickly. Obviously I'm not going to show you those, you're going to have to trust me, but my strength is currently set to 7. I did have it on 11, which was a recommendation online. The first time I went out, I lost it into a corner and the wheel almost broke my wrist. I tell you, it was really aggressive, really aggressive. So I've actually got that set to 7. I've turned that right down. The True Force audio I've got set to 52 at the moment, but again, as I said, I quite liked the audio at 100. You got an awful lot of detail through the wheel, but you could hear a lot of it when you were actually playing. It was coming through quite loudly and it would disturb people. So if I'm going to be racing at night, again, I'm going to have to turn that down to probably 20, so it just suppresses that. The force feedback filter I've got set to auto. The dampener is set to 20. I've got my angle set to 1080, although every single time I go in here, it's reset it to 900. I'm setting it to 1080 again now. The brake force, I've got mine set to 20. Now in the game, what you can do is adjust that whilst you've actually got the car on the screen, and you can see how the actual brake force will change. We might have a look at that in just a moment. The left paddle I have set to clutch. The right paddle, normally I have this set to handbrake in Gran Turismo for a quick start. So I put the handbrake on the right paddle and it will hold the car. As soon as the lights go green, I'll release the hand pedal, the right paddle, and it will just go. There isn't that concept in Assetto Corsa with the handbrake. So at the moment I've just got it set to brake. So I'm hoping it's going to do the same thing with any luck. The clutch bite is set to 100. The RPM mode I go outside to win. That is entirely up to you. The brightness I've got set to 100, and then the other settings are all fairly normal. So I will be going into the career mode and recording that for the next video, but we'll just go into single player at the moment. You can do practice, you can practice at Nürburgring, and the team is Lamborghini. Different choices in here, which I haven't worried about at all. I've literally just gone with the standards. Again, the circuit, there's lots of different circuits down here, but a lot of them are locked. I think you need the DLC possibly for those. So we've got Zolder, Barcelona, Hungaroring, Nürburgring, Spa, Zandvoort, and a few others, it looks like. I don't know if we need the DLCs for those, but anyway, we'll just go with the Nürburgring for now, which is the standard. We've then got the practice mode. I've got it set to realism expert. You could change that if you wanted to. Being on expert means the damage rate is 50%, the fuel and tyre is enabled, The tyre sets are unlimited. Brake temperature's disabled on this particular one, but I mean, you can change that up if you want to. For now, I'm just going to stick with that. And then we go start session. Now, one of the things I will do in here is I'm just going to change the True Force audio, and I'm going to put that up to 100%. I don't know quite how much you're going to be able to hear in this through the microphone, but we will see. I'm not going to work with my headphones for the moment. Normally I would do. Right, so the first thing we need to do, we get the green flag, is to start the engine. We turn it on, then we start it up. Don't rev too much. Up into first gear, and we'll come out of the pit. I'm just being a bit quiet for the moment. Now the microphone might filter some of that out and not be picking up all of that noise. But there is quite a bit of noise that is coming through the steering wheel at the moment. Just hit pause, you might have heard that a bit more. So what I tend to do is, for the True Force audio, if I take that down to 20, then it is still there, but you can now hardly hear it. Now obviously there is less information, I think, coming through the wheel. So obviously you've got that audio turned down. But there is now much less noise, and I would then be able to race that at night. So that's just something to bear in mind if you race late at night with people in your house. While I'm talking, I'm throwing it off the track. Just take that back. I'm going to take it up quickly. It's quite nice to change that dynamically, and it immediately works. Obviously, I'm getting used to the physics on this. They are very different to Gran Turismo. Having to brake a little bit earlier on this, or harder. I do like the graphics. I think they are toned down a little bit more than Gran Turismo, which I really, really like. I love the sound of the car. And again, I'm doing this without headphones, which is a little bit more difficult. But I love the sound of cars. They are much, much better, in my opinion, than Gran Turismo. We just come around to start this lap again. And I'll just pause it there for the moment. So we've got the R3, then I can cycle through the HUD. Cycle through the cameras, I should say. You can just see there very, very faintly the lights phasing. We've obviously got the ability to turn off the engine and turn it on and off. Then we've got our indicators, etc. But pushing the... Let me just come out of there for a second. On track, pushing the right scroll wheel button, you can see now in the bottom left-hand corner, and let me just turn my camera off again, just so that you can see this. So I can see overall the lap times. But if I push it again, you then get your car electronics. Push it again, and then you get some pit stop information, tyre change information, and the like. Push it again, and then it turns it off. So you've got 3 cycles through here. And I can then, using the toggle wheel, or the little joystick, I should say, I can come down here and I can change my traction control if I want to. I could change the ABS, the brake bias, so I could see exactly what's going on. I could possibly put the windscreen wipers on. Doesn't actually seem to... The windscreen wipers doesn't do anything, probably because I've got them on automatic. But you can see the rain light there just by going left and right. I can turn that on or off. The left indicator, I can turn that on or off. The dash I can change, race logic, pit limiter, turn that on and off, etc. So there are other bits of information in here. Going off across to the next one, you've got your pit limiter. I think this is only going to work when we're in the pits. But the pit strategy, the fuel to add, so I could change that. So how many litres I'm assuming that I'm adding in here. I'm going to assume that is for the number of laps. I don't know, I've got to get into this. The tyre sets, set 1, set 3, set 4, set 5. I need to do a bit of homework on this. Hopefully going through the career it's going to tell me a lot of this stuff. The compound, whether it's dry, wet. Looks like I've only got dry and wet. I was expecting some intermediates, but and then the pressures, obviously I've got the pressures set manually at the moment, but you could set those. So I guess you could do that while you're racing if you're clever enough. I won't be doing that. But you've also got, you can change the brakes, you can set the suspension. Again, just by left and right on the wheel there. And change the brakes, the front brake and the rear brake. Not quite sure what that is. I'm going to assume that that is the brake balance on there. And then you obviously got your time required for your pit stop. So I've got that mapped on the right scroll wheel. Just by pushing the button I can get the race details, the overall details, the car electronics and the pit information as well. So that's basically how I've got my game set up at the moment. I'll leave that video here. If you found this one useful, please smack the like button. If you're new around here and you're interested in more Assetto Corsa videos, and in particular me through the career mode, then please hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications and more coming soon. This is a new channel, I've rebranded it, so I apologise to anybody that is here looking for guitar stuff or railway stuff, but this is all going to be about Assetto Corsa now. And I do have my sister YouTube channel for the Gran Turismo content that will stay the same. I'm going to keep these two channels running in parallel. So that's it for now. Thank you ever so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you on another video coming soon, which is going to be the start of my career mode. I'll see you then. For now, take care. Bye bye.